Dale Earnhardt Jr. publicly raised a question that Joe Gibbs Racing has so far refused to answer. In a NASCAR offseason already defined by lawsuits, uncertainty, and internal tension, Earnhardt Jr. addressed the sudden departure of Chris Gabart with a remark that immediately drew attention. "It's a big loss for JGR," Earnhardt Jr. said. "And it kind of makes you wonder what the general temperature is when a guy like that decides to leave the building." That comment carried weight because this was not a routine personnel change. Gabart was not a marginal figure, nor was he nearing retirement. He was one of the most respected technical and strategic minds in the sport, and his exit came with no explanation from Joe Gibbs Racing. This was not simply a crew chief changing teams. Gabart had been with JGR since 2012, rising from engineer to Denny Hamlin's crew chief. Together, they won 22 races, including back-to-back Daytona 500 seconds, and were widely viewed as one of the strongest pairings in the Cup Series. When JGR promoted Gabart to Director of Competition in late 2024, the move was seen as logical and forward-thinking. Even Earnhardt Jr. praised the decision at the time, calling Gabart a perfect fit to lead the organization's competitive direction. That is what makes his departure less than a year later so difficult to explain. You do not elevate someone to oversee your entire competition department only for them to disappear quietly months later, unless something behind the scenes has gone wrong. What added to the confusion was how Gabart's exit became public. There was no announcement from Joe Gibbs Racing, no statement from Joe Gibbs himself, and no acknowledgement of Gabart's contributions. Instead, his departure was casually confirmed by an Associated Press reporter outside a courtroom during the NASCAR antitrust trial involving 2311 Racing. There were no quotes, no farewell, and no explanation. Now, reports suggest Gabart could land at Spire Motorsports for the 2026 season. Spire has been rumored to be positioning itself for significant growth, and Gabart's potential arrival would represent a major step forward for that organization. If true, it raises serious questions about why JGR was unable or unwilling to keep one of its most valuable leaders. Gabart's role extended far beyond Denny Hamlin. He was also instrumental in helping Ty Gibbs transition from an Xfinity Series champion to a full-time Cup Series driver. That mentorship was especially important given Ty Gibbs' status as Joe Gibbs' grandson and the pressure that comes with it. Gabart provided both technical guidance and stability, and his absence leaves a significant void. This was not a talent whose value was diminished by past controversies. While Gabart had served suspensions in 2020 and 2022, his reputation within the garage remained strong. He was still regarded as one of the sharpest minds on pit road, which is precisely why JGR promoted him in the first place. The silence surrounding his departure has only fueled speculation. Was there a disagreement over authority or direction? A power struggle within the organization? Or did Gabart recognize broader instability and choose to leave before conditions worsened? Earnhardt Jr. did not speculate publicly, but his comments pointed to a troubling pattern. When someone of Gabart's stature leaves Joe Gibbs Racing without explanation, it becomes more than a single personnel move. It becomes a signal. Joe Gibbs Racing is not just another team. It is one of the sport's most successful dynasties, built on structure, discipline, and long-term planning. Losing a director of competition under these circumstances is not a minor disruption. It is a warning sign. Gabart was a central figure in JGR's competitive engine. He helped build systems, develop drivers, and stabilize performance at the highest level. His ability to balance engineering precision with leadership made him difficult to replace. If he does join Spire Motorsports, the implications could extend beyond one team gaining talent. It would suggest a potential shift in the competitive landscape, with emerging organizations willing to challenge established powerhouses. At the center of this story is not just Gabart's departure, but what it represents. Earnhardt Jr.'s concern reflects unease about the direction of a team that has long been considered one of NASCAR's most stable institutions. The broader context matters. NASCAR is in the midst of significant change, with legal battles, evolving business models, and shifting alliances. In periods like this, internal fractures tend to surface. Joe Gibbs Racing has historically been a model of control and consistency, but when a key leader exits during a transitional period and the organization offers no explanation, the rest of the garage takes notice. Right now, the facts are simple. Chris Gabart is gone. Joe Gibbs Racing has said little. Dale Earnhardt Jr. has publicly questioned the situation, and the sport is watching closely. Whatever led to this moment has not yet been fully revealed, but one thing is clear. This is not a routine change, and its effects may extend far beyond a single offseason. This story is still unfolding. If Gabart joins Spire Motorsports, the competitive implications could be substantial. It would suggest that emerging teams are no longer content to develop slowly, but are instead targeting the leadership and expertise that once remained concentrated within the sport's elite organizations. More broadly, this moment reflects the instability currently shaping NASCAR as a whole. Legal battles, evolving business models, and shifting power dynamics are forcing teams to reassess long-standing assumptions. In that environment, internal tensions tend to surface. Joe Gibbs Racing has not collapsed. It is not publicly unraveled, but when a cornerstone figure exits during a transitional period and the organization declines to explain why, the rest of the sport pays attention. At this point, the facts are straightforward. Chris Gabart is no longer with Joe Gibbs Racing. The team has remained largely silent. Dale Earnhardt Jr. has publicly questioned what that silence might indicate, and competitors